Sponsored by Surfshark. Hello my beautiful watchers and welcome to Lost in Adaptation, the YouTube-based series dedicated to comparing films to the books they're based on to see if the plot and core themes survive the conversion process between entertainment mediums. I hope you like baseball because today we're looking at Field of Dreams and Shoeless Joe, the novel that inspired it. In case you were not aware, Joseph Shoeless Joe Jackson was an American outfielder who played Major League Baseball in the early 20th century. Despite his batting average remaining to this day one of the highest in history, he's more commonly remembered for being one of 8 players suspended from the game for life after it came to light they may have accepted bribes to throw the 1919 World Series for gambling reasons. JD Salinger was an American author best known for his 1951 novel The Catcher in the Rye, which received high praise for its themes of alienation and its critiques of the superficiality in society. Due to its vulgar language and adult themes, it often ended up causing controversy in schools that wished to add it to the curriculum. Salinger did not take well to the attention his writing brought him and became famously reclusive as he got older. He did not write Shoeless Joe, but trust me, my motivation for bringing him up will become quite clear if you stick with me. The actual author in question was W.P. Kinsella, who, despite writing one of the most famous stories about a sport that only really matters to Americans, was a Canadian writer. He wrote a score of novels and a ton of short stories over his career. They tended to be either baseball themed or fictions focused on the indigenous people of Canada, the latter earning him some criticism for appropriating another group's culture to further his own career. Fortunately, the book we're looking at today is in the former category. Published in 1982, Shoeless Joe earned Kinsella the Books in Canada First Novel Award and the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame Award for his literary contribution to the game, which I didn't know was something you could get an award for. The original title was apparently Dreamfield, but that was vetoed by the publisher before release. The days before the internet and search engine optimization was a thing where you could call your book whatever Google confusing thing you wanted. Synopsisized to the extreme, a farmer in Idaho starts hearing a voice in his head that tells him to do weird things. First, to build a baseball field on his land that, if you will excuse the pun, becomes the favorite haunt of the ghosts of some of the best players in history, led by the titular Joe Jackson. It then instructs him to go and find a famous author and cheer him up, then to look up some seemingly random guy, and the end result of all this is it saves his farm from destitution and gives him a chance to meet his late father again. The main character of the book shares the last name of the author, though his first name is Ray. There is a semi-logical reason for this that I don't have time or the inclination to go into here, but to avoid confusion, I'm going to refer to the writer as Kinsella and the character as Ray. This book defied what expectations I had of it going in. I really expected the ghosts to play less of an active role in the story, leaving some chance that they were just all in the protagonist's head, but they're perceived by so many other people and actively interact with the world around them so often, there's really no wiggle room regarding their existence. The only two options are there really were magic ghosts, or none of the story happened. If Ray imagined them, then Ray is an unmarried, childless guy living alone on an abandoned farm, hallucinating his entire life. I'm 100% sure that baseball parodies religion in this book, though I'm less sure if it was intended to be a full-on allegory or simply making the commentary that sufficient fanaticism towards a sport is indistinguishable from a religion. Now, long-time watchers will know that I like to acknowledge when my lack of appreciation for something might be due to not being the target demographic for it. The main themes of this book are baseball, obviously, dealing with not getting to live your dreams, and the difficulties of connecting with family. I work my dream job, have a great relationship with my family, and was raised in a country where the average understanding of baseball was, it probably involves a base and some sort of ball, so I don't think it really matters if I enjoyed this book because it really wasn't written for me. The one thing I will say though is the way this Canadian author wrote dialogue for these small-town Americans kind of reminded me of Quincy Morris in Dracula, so if there's any Idahoans in the audience who have read it, I would love to hear from you in the comments regarding if this is the way y'all talk, because if so, Damn. American director Phil Robinson allegedly read and loved the book right from publication and was determined to turn it into a film. He successfully got producers Lawrence and Charles Gordon on board, but despite Lawrence being the president of 20th Century Fox, they still couldn't get the studio to commit to it. Robinson went ahead and wrote the screenplay anyway with help from Kinsella, and when Lawrence left Fox a few years later, they shopped around to manage to get the green light from Universal Pictures. The name was once again changed against the writer's wishes, ironically bringing it back to something more in keeping with the original. The film premiered in 1989, starring, amongst others, Kevin Costner, James L. Jones, Amy Madigan, Burt Lancaster, and Ray Liotta. In a nice touch, they even went as far as to hire famous baseball coach Rod Dido to instruct the actors on how to play ball convincingly. Now, I have a soft spot for Kevin Costner, as someone who is a wee child who couldn't tell when a film was bad, unironically enjoyed Waterworld and The Postman, but even I can't deny his performance can be more monotone than an automated phone directory, and I do understand that makes him a little hard for other people to enjoy. Despite this, the film was well received by critics, and while it's not exactly remained on the forefront of popular culture over the years, it's still apparently appreciated by fans and just relevant enough to be occasionally referenced or parodied for comedic purposes.
If you build it, he will come.
If you build it, nerds will come.
If you book them, they will come.
If you build it, I will come.
If you fucking, he will come, he'll come.
How do you not like Field of Dreams?
And now, a quick word about this video's sponsor. Did you guys know that your favorite streaming service almost certainly has radically different programming available in other countries because of distribution rights? So, certain shows are being blocked from you due to the happenstance of your geography. Well, it's true, but this geo-blocking can be overcome with the cunning deployment of Surfshark. Surfshark camouflages your IP address by routing all of your incoming and outgoing information through one of their servers located around the planet, fooling websites regarding your location and unlocking previously restricted content. An additional advantage of this service is the encryption. This not only protects your device when you're connected to unsecured public Wi-Fi, while Surfshark is activated, the many people who monitor your online activity to sell the collected information to gods know who will be blinded to your goings-on. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free, and if you go to surfshark.deal/Dominic Noble and use the code Dominic Noble, you will get 83% off a 2-year plan plus 3 extra months for free. Again, that's surfshark.deal/Dominic Noble and the code Dominic Noble to slay the twin-headed beast that is geo-blocking and corporate data collecting. Huzzah! Okay, the story elements of the film that are taken from the book are as follows. Ray Kinsella, a corn farmer in Idaho, hears a mysterious voice telling him that if you build it, he will come, and decides the it is a baseball field and the he is the ghost of the late Shoeless Joe Jackson. Against what you might consider reasonable expectations, his wife is supportive of this endeavor, and he sacrifices some of his already beleaguered farm to build this baseball field, and again, somewhat surprisingly, old Shoeless does in fact show up. After a while, he starts bringing more deceased baseball players with him, including the 7 other men who had been banned for life after the scandal. During all this, Ray's brother-in-law has been pestering him non-stop to sell the farm to the company he works for to no avail. It's also revealed that not everyone can see the games taking place on the field. Ray then hears the voice again, this time instructing him to ease his pain, and deduces his new quest is to track down a retired world-famous author who is now living in voluntary exile from his fans and take him to a baseball game, a sport Ray remembered he had mentioned having loved in the past during an interview. Encountering understandable resistance towards this plan from the man, he eventually convinces him to come through a combination of tenacity and semi-kidnapping. At the game, he receives the next clue in his apparent job to assemble the Baseball Avengers, the instruction to go the distance regarding someone called Moonlight Graham, who, like almost every other side character in this, was a real person. In another surprising twist, it's revealed that Author Man got the same message and is now on board with this supernatural quest. They travel to Moonlight's hometown only to discover he died years before, having retired from baseball after playing only one single inning in the big leagues and becoming a doctor. That night, Ray takes a walk and finds himself transported back in time to meet Moonlight as an old man. He tells him he doesn't regret becoming a doctor, but wishes he could have played professional baseball just a little bit more. This seems like the end of this particular side quest until on the way back they pick up a hitchhiker who is revealed to be Moonlight as a fresh-faced teen looking to become a baseball baseball star. They take him back to the magic ghost field and he gets his wish by playing with the departed legends of the game. Unfortunately, it transpires that while Ray was away gallivanting, the family had fallen behind on their mortgage payments and his brother-in-law was poised to take the farm through legal means. It suggested that perhaps the magical field of baseball ghosts could be monetized in some way with the select people who could see them, but before the discussion can go any further, Ray's daughter falls and starts choking to death on the hot dog she was eating. In order to help, Moonlight breaks the unspoken but solid cosmic rule of not stepping off the baseball field and assumes his old man doctor form, saving the child's life at the cost of not being able to return from that point on. Now able to see the field, Bro-in-law is more amenable to not bulldozing the magic miracle farm, and Authorman is invited to come and visit the world beyond, something Ray is initially jealous about but comes to terms with. In a final twist, it turns out the he from He Will Come was actually referring to Ray's late father, who had an unsuccessful baseball career in early life and was always kind of bitter he never made it, giving them a chance to bond in a way they never did in life.
Is this heaven?
It's Iowa.
So here's the wild payoff to my setup earlier. While retired author Terrence Mann, portrayed by James Earl Jones, followed basically the same arc as his book counterpart, there is a key difference between them, namely that his book counterpart was JD fucking Salinger. Yeah, Kinsella, apparently not content to just include the ghosts of real departed sports stars in his book, decided to write in a real-life and still alive author he had never met into his story about magical baseball, creating the character exclusively from assumptions he had made about him from reading his books. A story, I remind you, that may or may not have ended with him being raptured off into heaven while still alive. You could say this was a bold choice. You could also say that Kinsella was a bit of a fucking weirdo. You might understandably be wondering if Salinger ever found out about this, and if so, how he felt about it. Well, it turns out the answers are yes and enraged. Right, does anyone have any thoughts regarding who we should cast to play JD Salinger? We actually had some correspondence from the man himself regarding this. He said, this shit is fucking creepy. If you weirdos use my name or likeness in a film, I'm going to sue you out of existence. So, all in favor of changing the name and casting a black man? Moving on, it's a small thing, but the voice that Ray hears was described as sounding like a sports announcer coming across a distant speaker in the book. I'm guessing this was changed because it kind of juxtaposed the ethereal tone the scene in the film was going for.
If you build it, he will come!
Amusingly, the film adjusts both Ray's and his wife's reactions to be a little more relatable. Book Ray only had to be told to build a baseball field for ghosts exactly once before he leapt into action, while in the film he had to be nagged a little bit before really committing. And while it's possible that Ray was being an unreliable narrator regarding her, if he wasn't, then he had the most understanding wife in human history, instantly on board with literally everything and anything he wanted to do, be it carve up their farm to satisfy the voices in his head, or abandon said farm to go on a road trip with an antisocial author. Honestly, it was a bit of a flaw in the book. Mrs. K wasn't so much a character as a pretty plank of wood. The only development we got for her was finding out it had been her lifelong goal to be his wife when she was a teen. The film goes out of its way to try to make her more interesting, including a scene where she destroys a conservative woman trying to get books banned from schools with facts and logic, and also an offer to fistfight. We stan a liberal queen. Also on the list of amusing, relatable changes in the film, Joe now seems as surprised to be back from the dead as they are to see him. Originally, Ray was only able to build the left field of a baseball stadium, but the rest of it just appeared like magic with the players. I think the film may have just let him build the whole damn thing to make it a bit less complicated. Two fairly significant, though ultimately inessential characters were left on the cutting room floor. The first was Eddie Sissons, the elderly gentleman who sold his farm to Ray and remained a family friend. He was known in town for being the oldest living man to have ever played for the Chicago Cubs, though later in the book it was revealed that this was a false claim on his part, as he had never made it to the big leagues and was simply living out a fantasy in his old age. This information was eventually leveraged against him, so he would sign off on letting the big evil company buy out the farm's mortgage, though though. Ray reveals that he knew this all along, being a baseball fanatic with an encyclopedic knowledge of its history. The ghost field helps Eddie come to terms with his life just before he dies, and Ray grants his last request to be buried next to the field so the baseball legends could attend his funeral. Aside from the obvious time constraints of a movie, I suspect his omission was due to never quite making it in professional baseball already being the motivation of two other characters. Fun fact, a real-life syndrome regarding pathological lying and exaggeration about one's past was named after this character. The other notable absentee was Ray's estranged twin brother, Rich, who had left decades before to join the circus. He was drawn to Ray's farm to reconnect with him, but was the only non-antagonistic character who couldn't see the players. Awkwardly, his girlfriend could, and more awkwardly, her stage name was a slur for the Romani people, so I don't want to say it out loud. Fortunately, Rich did successfully tune into Ghost FM just in time to be able to meet his dad with Ray at the end. Regarding plot points, while there are some minor omissions here and there, the only one amusing enough to be worth mentioning is Ray knocking himself out by walking headlong into a girder at the baseball game that he took JD Salinger to, forcing his kidnapping victim to drive him home. Final thoughts. Overall, I am reasonably impressed with this adaptation. It trims some of the fat off the book while holding true to its core, and you can tell Robinson was a fan and wanted to do right by it. Just speaking for myself, as the themes of the book didn't resonate with me, the only thing of interest was the bizarrety of JD Salinger's presence, which, alas, I was robbed of in the film by JD Salinger and his lawyers. I think its success with general audiences is as much about the directing and score as it is about the story, which has kind of shown me that maybe books that I might otherwise have thought weren't worth an adaptation might actually have potential with the right team behind them. Thank you for joining me, my beautiful watchers. If you enjoyed this video, this would be a fantastic time to assist in it staying afloat on the high seas of the YouTube algorithm by feeding its sales with a tasty like and or comment. And if you're enjoying the channel in general and crave more, there's exclusive content available on my Patreon page, including episodes that were taken down from YouTube for copyright reasons. See you next time.
What'd you say his name was? We're gonna call him Shoeless Joe! That's a wonderful idea! Oh, I've got a lot of ideas! Who came along in a puff of smoke? Shoeless Joe from Hannibal, no! Strong as the heart of a mighty oak! Shoeless Joe from Hannibal, no! Lucky are we to be having him! Shoeless Joe from Hannibal, no! Just when the future was looking grim! Shoeless Joe from Hannibal, no! Came a long, long way to be with us today. With arms of steel like Hercules, feet as fleet as Mercury's. He'll fight for us, do right for us. He'll be a beacon light for us. He's Shoeless Joe from Hannibal, no!
Much love and appreciation to my patrons of honor, Shelby Holtz, Attell Spurdloff, and Trace Carter. Shout out to Ilnej for the credits music, check out his channel for more parody and original songs, and a huge thank you to this video's editor, Sophia Riccardi. Links to her work in the video description. The YouTube-based TV series, not a TV series, that's a bit above my pay grade. Wrong button! Its critiques of the superfragilescapsuyalidocious, fuck me. Despite Sir Terry's best attempts to sabotage that by eating paper, I think that went quite well. Oh, Sir Terry be like, oh no, you can't go through an entire episode without my cameo. Huzzah.